Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video, in which we'll be taking a look at the basics of DATPROF privacy, our very own data masking and synthetic data generation tool. With it, you, the user, can create high-quality, automated test data across your entire organization. In this video, we'll start by setting up a database connection within privacy. After this, we'll import all of the necessary metadata, define a few basic functions on our data, quickly going over conditions, consistency, and dependencies, and finally, execute a run. Without further ado, let's switch over to privacy. Alright, after having successfully installed privacy and opening it for the first time, we can start creating a project. To do this, we'll press the New Project button here. We'll supply a name for our project. Let's call it My Test Project. Okay. A quick query whether I want to overwrite a project that already exists with this name, which I do. And once we have created a project, we'll be landed in the project settings page. This is a page that allows us to connect to a database using the Edit Connection button, import the metadata that we want to use during our project creation, and sync metadata as our data model changes over time to make sure that the project remains up to date. Let's press the Edit Connection button. Here, we see the connection editor. This has two main portions. On the left-hand side, we have all of the saved connections, so connections we've used before and that we've elected to save. And on the right-hand side, we have the project connection. This is a selector where we can select a database type and then supply values in order to connect to the database. Depending on which type of database we choose, the values we need change depending on what the database expects us to supply. Normally, we would supply values like the host and port of the database here. And then we are able to test the database connection, save it as a saved database connection on the left-hand side here, or clear our selection and create a new connection. For now, let's select a database connection I've already saved in the past. We can also press the test button here, which will confirm that we can connect to the database I've configured, which is good. And then we'll use this connection. After this, we need to import the metadata that we need to use in the project. Pressing the Import Metadata button opens the Import Wizard, which shows us an overview of all of the tables that we were able to pull from the database. So you can see here we have, for instance, the customers table, the locations table, etc., etc. On the right-hand side, we have a similar overview that is currently empty. All the tables in this overview are tables that are currently inside of the project. What we can do is we can select a table from the left-hand side, then press this single arrow to move it into our project. If we were to store this, we would have a project with a single table in it, the contracts table. You can also select multiple using the shift keys, moving them around with the single button, or select them from the right-hand side and move them back. Using the double buttons, it's also possible to move all of the tables from one side to another side. For instance, we move all of them into the project and move them all back. For now, we'll move all of the tables into the project, except for one that I've intentionally created to leave out, the My Numbers table. We press Next. And now we have a similar menu where instead of tables, we're importing foreign key definitions, which are important to maintain the validity of the database. Let's import all of these. Press Next. Now we get a short overview of the process of importing these definitions. If you press Next, you can see there were no issues. We can also check the logging by folding open this button. Everything seems to have gone fine. We can press Finish. Let's say the data model changes over time. For instance, we add columns to tables in the database, or we create tables or drop tables. What we can do is we can press the Sync Metadata button in order to, once again, connect to the database, where it will now compare what's known in the database to what's known in the project. The My Numbers table that we've left out earlier is still in the database, and we still detect it when we want to sync our metadata. If we were to press Next here, we can elect to import it and include it into the project. We can also do this for change tables or new foreign keys or change foreign keys. We don't need to do that for now, so let's press Cancel. All right, at this point, we've created a project, we've connected to the database, and we have all the metadata that we want to use. We can start heading on over to the masking portion of privacy now, or we can start defining some functions in order to alter our data. As we open the masking menu, we can see that the tables we've imported in the previous step are included in an overview on the left-hand side. If we've imported tables across multiple schemas, we can use the drop-down box in order to select which schema we want to view. Likewise, if we want to search for various tables inside of this selection, we can use the search bar above. Let's select the customers table here. Once we do, you can see that the overview in the center of the screen now displays all the information about the various columns that are inside of this table. Not only does this show the name of the various columns, but also the data type and any other information we might need in order to define functions. Starting off, let's select our bank column. Within the context of our data model, the bank column is a column that contains the information about the names of banks that our customers use. So this might be something like Lloyds Bank, Deutsche Bank, or the ING Bank. In order to add a function, we simply select the column, then press the Add Function button, and press Shuffle. Doing this opens the function editor. The function editor is a vehicle for modifying any functions that you define and changes depending on which function you select. For instance, for the Shuffle function, we simply select which columns we want to shuffle, and then based on that selection, a bank that was formerly ING Bank for a specific customer might be shuffled around to become something like Deutsche Bank or Lloyds Bank. Vice versa, other banks also change and shuffle around. This makes it so that the banks that are in the dataset after we mask are no longer retraceable to customers. What we can also quickly go over while we're looking at this function is the condition. A condition is a defined clause, a SQL clause that you can enter that allows you to filter the results of any function to only trigger on those rows. For instance, if I were to say here where customer ID is, for instance, equal to the number 2000, then only one row would be masked in this entire data set. This can be desirable if you're using multiple functions on a single column, or if you know that you only want to mask certain rows, or if you know that certain rows are important to mask and others are not important. For now, let's just press OK. After this, we can start looking at a date field, for instance, the date of birth. This is also information that we don't want to remain in our test database. Selecting the date of birth column, we press the Add function, and then use the Fixed Day in the Same Month of Year function. This is a very simple function. What this does is it simply looks at dates in a column and then resets them back to the same day in the same month. And press OK. And lastly, we want to change the first names of the customers that are in this data set. We select the first name column, press the Add function, and now we specify a generation function. As you can see in the function editor, there are a wide array of various different generators that we can select from. This may seem daunting at first, but for now, let's just pick a simple generator and go over how this works. Let's select the dinosaur generator. What this does is it goes over all the first name column values that are in our data set, and one by one replaces them with random dinosaur names. For instance, a customer that was Joey originally might become a Brontosaurus, or a customer whose name is Fred might become a Spinosaurus. While we're looking at this, it might be good to go over deterministic masking as well. There are two various ways of generating. Firstly, we can do random generation, which means that every single time we execute this template, the generation is random. So Joey might become a Spinosaurus in the first deployment, but then if we reset the database and execute again, Joey might become a Megaraptor, which may be undesirable. What we can also do is we can mask deterministically. What this means is that we define a salt value, which is then used for hashing. For instance, we can just replace this with my salt. And once we do, this means that all of the original values that are identical and have the same salt will always be masked the same way. So if we have, for instance, Joey in this database, and we execute the first run, he'll become a Brontosaurus. But Joey will also become a Brontosaurus on the second run, and the third run, and so on. And this even goes across multiple various database types. So for instance, if we were to use the same data model on an Oracle database and on a MySQL database, or for instance, a Postgres database, as long as we have the value Joey, and we're using the same generator, across all of these databases, no matter how many times we deploy, Joey will always become a Brontosaurus, which may be desirable. Lastly, let's quickly go over the dependencies. Dependencies simply indicate that we want certain functions to run before or after other functions. Likewise, with the condition, this may be desirable if we have multiple functions on a single column. So let's simply just define a condition and then save this. So we can see here on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, all of the functions we've defined before. So we can say, for instance, we want to execute the fixed day and month on the date of birth column first, and then we want to do the first name generator where we generate dinosaur names, and afterwards we want to shuffle the banks. Press OK. We also see a short overview here of what this will look like. Press all right, OK. Now that we have three functions, let's execute this run and see how we log during a run and any other things that might come up. Now that we've successfully defined a few data masking functions and we know how we want to alter our data on the database, it's time to start executing a run. To do this, we use the deployment menu. When entering this menu, initially we see very little. What we do see, however, is the deployment options and logging portion at the bottom of the screen. This is a settings menu in which the user can specify how we interact with the database while executing our run. For instance, you can specify how many maximum parallel processes we use when operating on the database, where we store our temporary tables, and also enable or disable certain system steps, like disabling triggers or indexes. During the execution of a run, the logging is also printed in this portion. Lastly, the user can also specify comments in the final tab of this portion. Let's start our run. As we start our run, we can see that the options menu automatically switches to the logging tab in order to print logging as it happens during a run. Every single step that's going to be executed during this run is also printed in the portion at the top of the screen. Every function that we've defined is also shown back in here. Because this run will take a minute to complete, let's reconvene when this is completed. Welcome back. After about a minute, our privacy run has finished successfully, and we can confirm this by going over the various system steps printed in the overview here. These are divided into three primary categories. We have the preparation step, in which we pull information from the database and disable certain constraints on the database, like foreign keys, indexes, etc. The main phase, in which we execute all the masking functions that we've defined, and the finalization phase, in which we re-add the constraints onto the database and we generate certain control documents. On top of this, at the bottom of the screen, as described earlier, we can also find back all of the logging that was printed during our run. Speaking of control documents, let's take a quick look at the audit log. As we open the audit log here, we can see that this is a simple document which describes all of the functions we've executed on the database, alongside how many rows it's affected, what the duration of the function was, and whether they were successful. This is quite a powerful tool that you can use in order to verify that any execution of a template was successful and that data is actually masked. For instance, when having to confirm to a security officer that this is the case. Armed with this knowledge, you should be able to execute simple runs and add more functions. And over time, as you add more functions and add in more complexity, you'll see that documents like the audit reports start to add their real value when you have complex environments with lots of various functions and a wide assortment of various comments, etc.